Hi there, and welcome back to the Energy Sector Heroes podcast. My name is Michelle Fraser, and every week I will speak with incredible people who share their lessons, experiences, and stories from their time spent in the energy sector. Hi there, and welcome back again to this week's episode. If you're new to the show, then please take a second to subscribe and even consider sharing the show with just one other person. This week I am joined by Delfina Govia. Delfina is a strategist and a chief sustainability officer. Delfina, would you like to introduce yourself, please?
I'd be happy to, Michelle. Clearly, you're not a Spanish speaker stumbling over my name, but that's quite all right. My name is Delfina, and I've been around the oil industry for 46 years. Started my career in 1979 as a roustabout on a drilling rig, and spent 20 years inside of industry. And then the next 20, now going on 6 years, as a consultant to our industry. And not just to our industry, but in the last several years, expanded beyond our industry because there's a lot that we have to offer as oil industry veterans to other industries, and particularly small and medium-sized businesses. So I dedicate my time, my energy, and efforts to lifting others up that are attempting to do something really wonderful and great in this world.
And that sounds amazing. A roustabout in the 70s, especially as a female, is quite an amazing achievement.
Not really, Michelle, because I have to be honest with you. I was disguised because women at that time were not allowed in offshore. And so I had to disguise myself as a boy. My hair was cut really super short like a boy. I had Coke bottle glasses, that covered up your face. I mean, think the 70s, right? We didn't have the sleek, nice looking glasses. And I had to wrap my chest to flatten it out, wear bulky clothes, and off I went because we women were just not allowed. So, not that impressive, just circumstance of the times.
There's not many times I'm speechless. I'm shocked.
Call it young and stupid, and daddy owned an oil field services company. So,
I was going to say, I mean, even when I started off, I was in the 80s, I think maybe mid to late 80s when I started off my career. And I was sometimes felt like I was the only female,
yeah.
especially at university and college. But in the 70s, it must have been really harsh then.
Well, 1979, so it's the last year of the 70s. But yeah, it harsh in the sense that it was a completely different operating environment. And you had less attention to safety. You had less attention to human topics and concerns. It was a very, very rough and tumble industry. That's the history of our phenomenal industry, is that grit and bravado and fearlessness that it took from when the oil industry began through those years. And so it was just a very different operating environment. And I always viewed it not as women being excluded because we weren't respected. I always viewed it as just a different time and era where women were precious commodities that needed to be protected. And the men took it upon themselves to care and protect for us. To me, it was not a disrespectful thing. It was more of a respectful thing. And having a woman out there just was, from the men's perspective, it was, we're not caring properly for a female if she's out here doing this. It was just a different time, different era. And, I didn't really take any offense to it. I just knew that I couldn't go out there openly as a woman because we just weren't allowed to go. And when you're the oldest child in a family-owned oilfield services company, it is what it is.
I think so too. I think so too. Do you think that if your family didn't own an oil field services company that you would have been allowed to go offshore?
Probably not. I absolutely am certain that they looked the other way because of who my father was.
Okay.
Absolutely. No question.
You must have seen a lot of changes over the year in the oil industry and even the
Oh,
energy
yeah.
sector.
Oh, absolutely. Where do you want to start, right? I mean, you can in any aspect you want to see. I mean, the technological advancements, of course, are incredible, right? We could go on about that all day, but I think that you would have much better guests that have those really brilliant technical backgrounds that can talk about those things. That's not me. I'm not the brilliant technologist. I'm not the brilliant engineer. That was not my forte. But I would say that from my perspective, looking 46 years back and even further, because I'm third generation oil, both my grandfathers on both sides were in the oil industry. So taking a look at that, I just think that 20 years ago, we started focusing very heavily on safety, on the safety aspect, and how things have changed dramatically since then. I can also tell you that we now have a different type of worker out there that have grown up in the digital age. We have our young managers, our engineers that are in management positions. They also were able to spend part of their life in a digitally savvy era. In my day and age, it was pulling teeth to get anybody even to use a computer. I remember when I went at Mobile, when we had installed computer systems offshore, I remember walking into our coach's office. We called our offshore foremen coaches. I remember walking to his office and he had this big old computer monitor on his desk and had all these, remember the printout sheets that were on, they were held together by pegs and they were green and white. Those were the printout sheets. I don't even know what we call them these days. And he had this computer that was completely covered in all of these sheets. And I said something to him and he scowled. He absolutely scowled. He said, I'm not going to, pointed at the monitor. He said, I'm not going to trust that thing. He says, I'm going to trust, and he pointed at his head, I'm going to trust my brain and I'm going to trust my information that's being printed out that's coming right off of my wells. And I'm not going to trust this thing that's sitting here on my desk that they forced me to have. And that was also back in the day. I'm pretty sure that it's still now that not just anybody can go offshore. So it's not like anybody from the corporate office could just land on his production platform, walk into his office and see that he wasn't using it. So it wasn't, you could get away with that. So that mentality of, I know my business, I know what I'm doing. You're not going to fool me into using this piece of information technology because I just don't trust it. That's gone. That's not our world anymore. And we've evolved from them to being more accepting of information technology, digital assets, digital support because of the workforce that we've had coming in over the years, right? And the tried and the true and the testing and the understanding from the IT world that you don't just walk into the oil industry with a software solution and expect them to embrace it with open arms, because what we do every day is very difficult and it's dangerous. And so we need to make sure that everything we do is done right. And I don't care what you have to say about your software. If it's going to mess up the dollars and cents, because one little mistake, 1 hour on an offshore production platform of you being down because something didn't work right is lots of money, right? It's millions of dollars every minute, every day. And the safety issues. So we're beyond that now. I mean, there's still that attitude that things have to be proven, but that's a tremendous change that I have seen over the course of the years. And we now have a more diverse workforce. We're more accepting of women and different cultures. We understand, we're better at it. We're not perfect, but we understand the value and the benefit of a diverse group thinking and contributing, as opposed to being very, what I like to call is male, pale, and stale. Everybody looks the same, everybody thinks the same, and you don't get the amount of innovation that is needed to really move the ball forward in our industry today. It's getting harder and harder.
You think that everybody looks and thinks the same? I didn't think that. I thought that there was quite a lot of people doing a lot of innovative things.
In what regard? Over the course of the years?
Yeah, over the course of maybe just recently, with you've got your carbon capture, you've got your AI and things like that. Because there is some companies that still think that the AI can take over running a whole plant.
So I think we're talking about a couple of different things. I
Yeah.
think that there is definitely a flurry of activity,
Mm,
of innovation and activity in the energy transition space.
mm.
And it's brilliant and it's wonderful. My point is that you're not going to see adoption of any type of new technology that is not engineering, even in engineering technology, right? We in the oil industry are the most innovative people on this planet from day one, the most innovative, because what we do every day, and people that know me get tired of me saying this, what we do every single day in the oil industry is more difficult than putting a man on the moon. You can walk outside, you can point up at the sky, you can see the moon, and there's the moon. But in the oil industry, when you're talking 2 miles down in water and then another 7 miles down beneath the surface, you can't see that and you don't know how to get there. That is so much more difficult. So, innovation is what the oil industry is all about. However, when you're talking about innovation in a different type of technology, in information technology, this artificial intelligence and all this other stuff, we are very, very cautious, very cautious. Not that we don't invest, because as you well know, the oil industry, the major companies in the oil industry have invested 3 times more money in the energy transition and energy transition technologies than everybody else put together. It's how we adopt it. And so the innovation that you're talking about is going to be the things that are more on the periphery, that are not going to risk the core operations. Does that make sense?
I,
Argue with me, Michelle.
I do agree because I don't think any of the energy major companies are going to do anything that's going to stop their production and things like that. Because it's
And
all,
those that have, they're backtracking, right? Look at some of the organizations that put energy transition, ESG, sustainability, when they put that at the forefront, we're doing a lot of greenwashing and a lot of blah, 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 blah about it. And this is what our focus is. They backtracked. As soon as their profits took a little bit of a dip and shareholders went, no, sir, they did an about face. We won't name them here because we don't want to get in trouble, but very public, very public.
it is, I do agree with that. So do you think that the energy transition is going well then? Do you think the companies will go full steam ahead?
I think that we are in a brilliant time in the energy transition. And people have been on my podcast and they've talked about, they don't like the word transition, they like energy transformation.
Mm,
And I think that we went through, I'm thinking from a pendulum perspective. The pendulum swung too far one way, where people were reacting to, what do we have to do? We have to eliminate fossil fuels, climate change, all these, the dirty oil companies, we're destroying the planet, right? And there was that energy and that excitement and money being put aside by governments and proclamations and commitments being made, the COP meetings and companies and countries standing up and saying we will be net zero by whatever year, and foolishness like in the state of California where they're going to eliminate electric vehicle purchases by 2035 when their grid couldn't even handle the electric vehicles that they had. There was all of that fury and we've got to eliminate fossil fuels. And now things are swinging back and we're having a more logical, logical approach and execution to the transition, because we said this years ago. So everybody's been to CERAWeek, right? Everybody in our industry goes to CERAWeek. And at the height of all of this, the oil industry executives, the big CEOs, were sitting there saying, yeah, we agree with all of this, with the transition, but what we need is a logical roadmap to how we're going to move forward. And we're now accepting that it's not about getting rid of fossil fuels, it's about supplementing fossil fuels with additional sources of energy that we need to fuel the energy demand in this world. It's not an this or that, it's an and. We need it all. We need more solar, wind, hydrogen, nuclear. We need all of that, but we also need to approach it in a very intelligent manner because it has now been brought to bear and they're teaching this in universities and it's getting well documented on the airways that all of this investment in solar and wind to cut back on carbon emissions. Well, guess what? We may have done that here in first world nations, but over in China, their carbon emissions are going through the roof because their manufacturing is producing all of the wind blades and the solar panels and everything else. So the benefit that we're getting here, we're losing it in other parts of the world. So that balanced discussion and logical and intelligent discussion is happening. And I think we are making tremendous strides in improving how we fuel this beautiful planet of ours with energy.
I actually agree. Do you think that oil and gas will ever go away? Do you think that we'll still need it? Because there's a lot of people,
Always.
they want to ditch it, they want to get rid of it altogether.
Good, go. Do it. Do it. Go figure out how you're going to live your life with no fossil fuels. Try it. It's not going to happen. Even if you're going to go and live in the middle of a forest somewhere, live off the land, you're still going to burn wood in a wood-fired stove that's going to have emissions. We need energy to live. And so it's a matter of being intelligent and it's a matter of using energy efficiently, but getting rid of fossil fuels is the most economically viable source of energy. And so you can say we're going to use anything but fossil fuels and the cost of your energy is going to skyrocket. How does that make sense to people that aren't at my income level, right? How do I look at somebody who's living paycheck to paycheck and tell them, oh, guess what? We're switching over to solar power to fuel our natural gas plants. So we're going to switch them over to renewable energy plants to produce power. And that's going to skyrocket the cost of your electricity. And so now you got to pay for that. It just completely changes the economic basis of society. It's not logical. It doesn't make any sense. So somebody wants to go try it, go try it.
I do agree, actually. I do agree with that. So, how do you think that the careers of the young graduates are going to change?
I think they have such tremendous opportunity in front of them. It's an exciting time. Think about it. All the new technologies that are coming to bear, there's just so many opportunities. So you can I can tell you this, the premier petroleum engineering programs on the planet are infusing energy transition discussions into their programs. They have baked into their curriculum the opportunity for young aspiring engineers, petroleum engineers, to really understand the bigger picture and how they can contribute. So if you're interested in energy, right, you can be your traditional petroleum engineer with a broader understanding of the energy industry, because that's what we're preparing these young people for today. Or if you're not interested in fossil fuels, you can get involved in renewable sources. Here's another one that I think is really exciting. Think about the young mind that's interested and excited about nuclear energy. All of a sudden, we're understanding and we're getting that nuclear energy and nuclear power today is not your grandfather's nuclear power plant. They have changed dramatically over the years. And it's just a mindset that exists from nuclear disasters that we remember in our lifetime, right? We remember Chernobyl, we remember 3 Mile Island, we remember a lot of those horrible incidents, but nuclear power and nuclear generation is completely today. So those young engineers that are excited about nuclear energy, guess what? That's a career path for you. If you're excited about studying different ways to recycle, taking methane that is escaping from farms and converting that into energy. This is all really cool stuff. And these companies that specialize in renewable energy, like the EDPs of the world, EDP renewables of the world, they're desperate for young minds and young talent. So the opportunity is absolutely phenomenal right now today, I think, with whichever way you want to go. Do you agree?
I do agree, actually. I think the younger graduates, they're coming into the energy space and it's never been more exciting for them. They can do
Never.
practically anything into renewables, into the traditional oil and gas. I think and they can make real change. I think the younger generations are the ones that are going to make and push for the real change.
I agree, and they want it. I mean, the young people, even we were even young and idealistic, right?
Mm.
And here I think that we're more open to feeding, to supporting idealism and those young aspirations. But Michelle, I also think that we have a responsibility as parents and as educators. Are you a parent, Michelle?
I am not. I am
You
not.
are not?
I'm
I
not.
am. But I'm sure you have younger relatives. I think it's really important for us as the older generation and the knowledgeable generation to teach our children the right messaging. Teach our children that, guess what? Everybody matters. There is a broader discussion. It's not about the evil oil industry and evil fossil fuels destroying the planet. It's teaching them the balanced conversation and that everybody deserves to have affordable energy in this world, no matter who you are, no matter where you grow up. If you are one of the most privileged people in the world to grow up in the United States of America, the land of opportunity, then it's a broad spectrum of economic levels, right? You can be a not well off young person and you have every right to affordable energy to someone that is very well off, but you're still going to be in a much better position as a young person than somebody that's growing up in a third world country. They deserve to have access to affordable energy as well. And so teaching our children the truth, not propaganda, not that fossil fuels are evil and they need to be gotten rid of, the balanced discussion about the realities of energy affordability and the energy demand in the world. So I think it's important as the older generation to teach our children well.
I think so too. Do you think that the affordable energy for all is going to be a reality?
Never, there's too nah, that's a, gotcha question, right, Michelle? Is that
Yeah,
can dream as much as we want to dream, but we're never going to be Star Trek Next Generation, right?
yeah, no.
The world is the world, right? There's still the inequalities around the globe. But to your point about the young people and their excitement for for new worlds and new opportunities, they're also living in a more globally connected world, right? Because young people around the world have access to each other through social media, right?
It's never been more different. The way that people connect now, it's almost kind of, not really kind of scary, but it's almost bewildering how far we've come. They can
Yeah,
talk to anybody all the
yeah.
way across the world, anybody, anywhere, anytime.
They can connect with each other, right? I think that one of the greatest advantages that I had as a young person in high school, I grew up in the middle of the oil industry, right? So my high school, it was the American school in the center of the oil industry in Venezuela. And all of the people there, like had 50% of us were Venezuelan, but the other 50% were from all over the world. And so here I am as a young person in a world with no connectivity, being exposed to other cultures. But when I went away to college, the people around me didn't have that exposure and understanding of other cultures like I did because of where I grew up. But now today, they have that access, they have that exposure. So I think it's cool.
I think it is pretty cool as well. Do you think it is pretty cool? So, do you have any Any advice for any of the up and coming generation that want to come into the energy space?
I think that we be open-minded. Don't just be idealistic. Don't lose your idealism, but be open-minded and be intelligent. Learn the truth, learn the economics, learn the science, learn the engineering aspects, learn about the broader geopolitical issues that come to bear. Learn, be open to the bigger picture and the bigger story, and the opportunities are endless. You figure out where you can contribute best. You can be an engineer that can find a type of technological pathway that excites you, or you could be, let's say, a social advocate. If you're more interested in human resources or communities and communication and that sort of thing, think about the opportunities that you could be afforded when you're going into, let's say, new communities and you want to build a solar farm in a new community and the engagement that you have in that community. Think about the opportunities from being a business analyst in this world, understanding the dollars and cents. And the opportunities are global. You could work anywhere in the world, and these topics are powerful and interesting. It's just endless. My advice would be go in with an open mind, learn, figure out what excites you from your passion, like what really speaks to you, and you can find a place. You can find a place.
I think so too, and I think that's really good advice. What do you think is going to be the major breakthrough in the future of the energy sector?
Oh, that's a great question. I think that once we solve, there's a couple of them. Now you've got my brain going crazy now. I think the biggest breakthroughs that we need right now in front of us, either breakthroughs or acceptance of reality, is going to be in the topic of infrastructure. So one of the biggest challenges that we have is infrastructure. So the beauty of the oil industry, of fossil fuels, is that is a very well-established global infrastructure to move those molecules around the world. Very well established. We don't have a similar infrastructure for any other energy source. So when people talk about hydrogen, difficult to transport, right? Pick any of them. We don't have, when we're talking about moving to, I made fun of California. I will always make fun of California until they get their head on straight. We talk about wanting to move to electric vehicles, right? You don't have the infrastructure for it. And if you're going to create a stronger grid, a more powerful grid, how are you going to fuel that grid if not with natural gas? So the infrastructure issues, we're going to have major breakthroughs in infrastructure and how we move molecules around before we can move as fast as a lot of people would like us to see.
Interesting. That is interesting. And I'm going to end it there. So that's all the questions I have today. I would like to thank Delfina for your time. That brings us to the end of another episode. Thanks for listening and see you next week. That brings us to the end of another episode. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed the show, I'd like to gently encourage you to leave a 5-star rating wherever you listen to podcasts and share the show with another person. You can also follow me on LinkedIn or via my website, www.michellefraserconsultancy.com. Thanks again for listening and see you next week.